Hi, I'm Derek Ashong, and you are now in the stream, a social media community with its own daily TV show. We are bringing you the stories that are ongoing, global, and sourced from social media. Today, we take an in-depth look at internet activists Anonymous and why they're both revered and reviled for what they do. Some call them internet heroes who fight to defend free speech and transparency online. Others dismiss them as cyber terrorists who break the law. No matter where you stand, there's no denying that the group Anonymous has become a powerful force that is redefining activism online. As you can see from my screen, I've got this particular image that is very powerful. It is a Guy Fawkes mask, and it's actually been taken from the movie V for Vendetta. Now, this is an image that has come to define Anonymous, and in a nutshell, we can't even describe them as a group per se. This are people who meet in internet relay chats, IRC rooms, online, and they discuss issues that are of interest to them. Now, we know that they do take part in some activities that people consider cyber activisty. They were involved in Tunisia in battling against the government's shutdown of censorship there. We also know that with WikiLeaks, when companies like MasterCard, Visa, PayPal refused to process transactions for WikiLeaks, they actually engaged in DDoS attacks on them, distributed denial of service attacks, where they basically shut down the websites of MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and some other places like Amazon. So you see that activist side, but then they also engage in activities called lulls, where they'll do things that are kind of just for fun, little hacks or activities that some people would consider to be, I don't even know how to put it, either prankish, or some people have said it's mischievous, etc. So it's not like they have this basic moral code per se. To give us a little bit more insight into who this organization is and what they're all about, we're happy to have joining us from New York University Assistant Professor Gabriella Coleman, who's extensively researched the group. Gabriella, thank you so much. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
So Gabriella, could you define for us in simple terms, what is Anonymous?
I have to say you did a wonderful job describing the sort of arc of activities they're involved in.
Thank you.
And one of the defining characteristics is that they're hard to define at some level. But prior to 2008, it was a name that was used precisely to coordinate pranks and hacks, and it grew out of an image board called 4chan. And then in 2008, it also grew some sort of political arms or wings, which have sort of multiplied since then as well. And so currently you have different people who use the name to coordinate political activities that range from protesting the Church of Scientology to supporting WikiLeaks, but the name is still used to also engage in prankish activity as well.
Now, I'm curious, how did this particular experience come together? Because it's not a group with a leader per se, it's not got an organizational structure. What is the genesis of it?
Well, the genesis in some ways came from this image board where everyone posts anonymously, and there was sort of a commitment to the ethic of anonymity, an ethic that's also anti-celebrity, anti-individualism. But in some ways, when they pranked the Church of Scientology in 2008, they went on internet relay chat and started to sort of coordinate political action. And in some ways, that is when the sort of political sensibility was born. And there's a little bit more organization in the political wings when it comes to the sort of technical resources, and yet there's a lot of flexibility and dynamism built into Anonymous when it comes to who and what they're going to engage with politically.
Nora, this is really fascinating because on the one hand you see sites, traditional social media, places like Facebook, that are actually curtailing people's activities based upon whether or not the organization decides it sees it as legitimate. And then you have something like Anonymous where people are literally pursuing freedom and doing what they do. You are the founder of an open source collective of your own. How do the principles of open source play when you look at something like Anonymous vis-a-vis how the rest of the world is engaged in social media?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to draw also parallels to the revolutions that are going on. And what I really like about this is this rhizomic approach where it's non-hierarchical. And it's a beautiful, almost like egalitarian approach to a topic. This sounds all very complicated, but what I mean is that it's bottom up, you know. People aren't happy about something, they want to change something, and they push consensus to find what kind of action they want to take. And so what I read about Anonymous, this is how it works, and you can correct me. And this is what works on Berta style. People create something together, but this is the same in the revolutions. You know, people aren't happy, they organize themselves, and then they take action. So it's a great way for civil society and for democracy, actually.
So, well, this is the thing that's interesting to me when you think about the organizing and taking action. And Gabrielle, I would love to get your insights on this because, again, Facebook is a place where everyone saw, oh, they had a significant role to play in, let's say, the Egypt or Tunisian revolutions. Anonymous also had a significant role to play, but they're very, very different platforms. Can you talk to us a little bit about the relative efficacy of an organization that has no idea of identity vis-a-vis places where, you know, maybe the regime can actually find your identity?
Right. No, it's very interesting because they are organized quite distinctly in some ways, and yet they have a sort of shared repertoire of tactics and history that they draw on in order to engage in actions. And this includes things like denial of service attacks, which they engaged in throughout the Middle East against government websites. But it also includes helping activists on the ground so that they can protect themselves from surveillance. It also includes the production of videos and manifestos that get circulated. And this is a sort of consciousness-raising aspect to the sort of work they do.
You know, on that point, I'm sorry, Gabriella, Ahmed was showing me a really cool video on Tunisia, on the operation in Tunisia. And, you know, Anonymous got involved in the Tunisian uprising long before mainstream media did. This is a video that we put together that gives a brief explanation.
Very quickly, back when we were just, you know, coming up with the concept for this actual show, for this stream, we were following the Tunisian uprising, and the role that Anonymous played, we'd just like to highlight very quickly. Tunisia's government began hacking into and deleting Facebook accounts. Protesters called for help from hacktivist groups.
An unprecedented crackdown on social media.
Censorship should get in touch with hacktivists and
we really need a local version of Anonymous in the Arab world.
And soon enough, another hashtag appeared across the networks. Anonymous.
The Tunisian government has decided it wants to restrict the freedoms of their own people. In doing so, the Tunisian government has made itself an enemy of Anonymous.
Within a matter of hours, Anonymous launched Operation Tunisia, paralyzing the president's site, several key ministries, and the stock exchange. The group also shared a cyber war survival guide, sharing cables from WikiLeaks documenting Ben Ali's corruption, tips on running from cops, and proxy sites to access Facebook and Twitter. The government quickly countered. So we're going to stop that right there and just highlight a quick question that came in actually from someone. This is someone called A.H. Fitzpatrick is asking, Anonymous is overrated, criminal, self-righteous, and detrimental to the freedom of the internet. What do you say to that?
So it's interesting. I think he's, or he or she is especially referring to the denial of service attacks, which is a very, very controversial tactic, and quite understandably as well, because it has been used to silence small human rights organizations all over the world. And yet other people also argue that when so much of our life happens online, we have to have tactics, dissent tactics, protest tactics that we can do online, and the DDoS.
I mean, just because somebody says it's illegal, it doesn't mean it's not right. You know, I mean, who defines what is illegal or not? Usually, it's the person in power.
This is a fascinating point,
you know,
because
women rights or any kind of civil rights, they were going, and people not being allowed to drive the same buses back in the U.S.
Well, this is something that we're seeing a lot. Is this idea? You know, historically, it's the state that determines what is legitimate, what is legal, what's not.
Right.
But when you have states that are seen as illegitimate by their people, how do you then say to the people, you're rising up or your action against it?
And it seems like that a lot of times people, that there a lot of users don't have rights on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like certain things, and I was reading this a piece by Richard Stallman talking about ebooks, how you can't just distribute them the way you want. You buy a physical book, I can give it to you.
Yeah, but
I can't do that with my ebook. You know,
on that
same
point,
with money. If I want to pass money around, you know,
it's
have
much
to pay.
different when you're doing it online. So to that point, I want to continue with this aspect of the conversation, but I want to thank you first, Gabriella, for joining us. We really appreciate you offering some more information on the nature of Anonymous.
My pleasure.
Now, we're going to continue this conversation, but before we do, we want you to know that if you are interested in tweeting your stories to us, if you want to influence the kind of stories we cover, definitely tweet us directly at AJStream. Next, we're going to be getting an insider's look at how Anonymous works and what measures some are trying to take to stop them.